Welcome in, everybody. Today, we're doing a deep dive into something really interesting. A career, actually.
Hmm.
It's one of those fields that's, well, hands-on, but also like right on the cutting edge of renewable energy and all that. Wood fuel pelletizers. That's what we're talking about. And we got our hands on some RoleCatcher guides, the career ones they do. And let me tell you, there's more to this whole thing than meets the eye.
It's really quite fascinating how it combines like skilled trades with this whole sustainability movement. And honestly, the career paths you can find there, way more dynamic than people realize.
Okay, so for those of us who've never even seen a wood pellet, break it down. What are the wood fuel pelletizer even DO all day? RoleCatcher got into the nitty-gritty, and I gotta say, not what I was picturing.
All right, so picture this. It's like I don't know, a giant spice grinder kind of thing. But instead of peppercorns, you're feeding it wood waste. Things sawdust, wood chips, all that stuff that usually just be, well, waste. They call it a hammer mill, and it pulverizes everything into this super fine dust.
Okay, so we're talking serious industrial grade stuff here. But what happens to the dust?
That's where the magic happens. That dust is then squeezed through a die, kind of like imagine a pasta maker, but on a huge G scale, and out come these perfectly uniform little pellets, the kind you see fueling some stoves and boilers.
So you're telling me we're taking something people basically throw away and turning it into a standardized fuel. There's got to be an art to that, right?
There is, and it takes skill. Being a good wood fuel pelletizer, it's not like just pushing buttons. You're in charge of quality control, making sure those pellets are up to snuff, troubleshooting any problems that crop up, and you got to really understand the whole process to maximize, how efficient the whole operation is. It's one of those jobs where you got to use your brain and your hands.
I can see that. It's not just mass production. There's a real craft to it. And speaking of demand, if this is such a specialized thing, are there even enough jobs out there?
That's where it gets interesting. RoleCatcher's data, it's showing a pretty clear trend. The demand for skilled wood fuel pelletizers, it's definitely on the rise. They're seeing more and more employers looking for qualified people, and not just entry level either. There's a whole bunch of specialized career paths popping up within the field, which is kind of cool.
So there's room to like move up the ladder. You're not stuck doing the same thing forever.
Not at all. In fact, RoleCatcher, they actually have a whole section in their guides now dedicated to, get this, interview prep, specifically for wannabe wood fuel pelletizers. Can you believe that?
Whoa, hold on. They got a whole section dedicated to interview questions for a job I'd barely even heard of before today. That tells you something right there about how much this field is growing.
It does. This whole demand for wood pellets as a renewable fuel, it's not slowing down anytime soon. All signs point to more growth, more opportunity. It's a sector with a lot of momentum behind it.
And I can see why. Everyone and their grandma's looking for green alternatives these days, and wood pellets seem to be, like, gaining some serious traction. But green can also refer to, career prospects. And this one's looking pretty darn good, both for people already in the field and those just dipping their toes in.
Now you're getting it.
RoleCatcher, they lay out this clear progression path. You could start as an assistant, entry level learning the ropes. But then, with a bit of experience and some good old-fashioned hard work, you can climb that ladder. We're talking becoming a leadwood fuel pelletizer, managing a whole team, setting production goals, the whole shebang.
Wait, so you're saying I could go from, like, shoveling sawdust, figuratively speaking, of course, to calling the shots on a whole wood pellet production line? That's wild.
It is. And the best part, RoleCatcher, they're big on emphasizing continuous learning in this field. Networking with other folks in the industry, building a portfolio to show off your skills, all that good stuff. It's not a stagnant kind of gig, that's for sure. Sounds like they're speaking directly to those who like to constantly learn and grow, which, let's be honest, in this day and age, who doesn't want to stay ahead of the curve? But this is where things get really interesting, because RoleCatcher dives into the tech side of things too. And let me tell you, AI is making its presence known in the world of wood pellets.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating, even for those who might think of wood pellet production as, well, more of a traditional field. Remember those interview prep resources we were talking about? Yeah, well, RoleCatcher is highlighting how AI tools are now being used to help candidates tailor their CVs and even get ready for interviews. Like, seriously.
AI giving you feedback on how to land your dream job turning sawdust into fuel? Man, the future is something else. But hey, let's get real for a sec. RoleCatcher also gave us a glimpse into what it's actually like to work in a place that makes wood pellets. And, well, it's not exactly your typical office gig, is it?
Yeah, not unless your office has, like, heavy machinery and a distinct lack of air conditioning. RoleCatcher's pretty upfront about that. They describe it as a manufacturing environment, which means production facilities, plants, that sort of thing. It's going to be physical, probably some heavy lifted involved, and of course you're going to be dealing with machinery, so
Yeah, not exactly the place for sandals and a tie-dye shirt, huh?
not quite. Think more along the lines of steel toe boots and ear protection, definitely. It can be noisy, it can be dusty, all that good stuff. But for folks who thrive in that sort of environment, who like getting their hands dirty and actually seeing the results of their work, tangible results, it can be a perfect fit. Honest work, essential work, and it's all contributing to a bigger picture.
And that bigger picture being a greener planet, right?
Yeah.
RoleCatcher was definitely hammering home the whole environmental aspect of this career path.
Oh, absolutely, and for good reason. This demand for wood pellets, it's directly tied to the whole push for sustainable fuel. So yeah, you're building a career, sure, but you're also playing a part in, moving us away from fossil fuels and all the baggage that comes with them.
Gotta admit, that's a pretty compelling selling point, to be able to say, my job, oh, I'm just helping save the planet, NBD. Not everyone gets to do that. But here's the thing. We've talked a lot about the what of this job, right? The tasks, the environment, all that jazz. But what about the why? Why should our listeners even care?
The million-dollar question. And it's like RoleCatcher saw that one coming. They spend a good chunk of time talking about the bigger picture, the career implications of all this. What I find really cool is how it challenges what we think of as a dream job.
Totally. This isn't your typical corner office with a view. It's something totally different, but with a ton of potential.
Exactly. You don't necessarily need a fancy degree or years of experience to get started. It's more about the right attitude, a willingness to learn. And hey, with the kind of resources RoleCatcher's putting out there, you can totally carve out a successful, rewarding career path. And in a field that's only going to get bigger as time goes on, with the whole renewable energy thing exploding and all.
They definitely make a strong case. And speaking of RoleCatcher, seems like they got a whole treasure trove of info for anyone who's even remotely intrigued. If someone's listening right now thinking, hey, wood pellets, maybe that's my jam, where should they start?
Well, their website's the obvious first stop. They've got those career guides we've been gushing over, and they really get into the weeds, talking about CVs, interview, and even networking within the industry. They've thought of everything.
It's like they created a step-by-step guide for anyone who wants in on this whole wood pellet game, whether you're fresh out of school or looking for a career change after years in some other field. And let's not forget those AI tools they mentioned. That's just wild. Imagine having technology helping you polish your resume and practice your interview answers. That's got to be a game changer.
No doubt. It's all about working smarter, not harder, right? And with resources like RoleCatcher, you can approach your job hunt with way more confidence and a strategy instead of just kind of throwing resumes at the wall and hoping something sticks. Almost like having your own personal career coach, but digital.
Well, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But speaking of guidance, what about folks who are already doing the wood pellet thing? Does RoleCatcher have any nuggets of wisdom for them, or are they on their own?
They definitely haven't forgotten the veterans. One thing they stress, even for the seasoned pros, is continuous learning. The renewable energy world, it's not exactly standing still. New tech, new techniques, it's always evolving.
So even if you've been a wood fuel pelletizer since, like before it was cool, you got to stay on top of your game.
Exactly. RoleCatcher's all about attending industry events, joining those online forums where everyone's geeking out about wood pellets, even creating a portfolio of, like, your greatest pellet making hits. Show off that expertise.
I like that. It's like no matter where you're at in your wood pellet journey, there's always more to learn, more ways to grow. Which brings me to my next question. And you know me, I always got another one.
Hit me with it. What's got you curious now?
So we've covered like the whole career side of things, but what about the actual environmental impact? We've talked about making the pellets, but are they really better than just burning regular old fossil fuels? RoleCatcher seems really gung-ho about the job itself, but I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture.
You're right. We've been so deep in the weeds of how to become a wood fuel pelletizer, we haven't really looked at the why behind it all. Good catch.
Right. Like, it can't just be as simple as wood good, oil bad, can it? There's always more to it when it comes to, like, the whole energy debate.
Oh, absolutely. Way more nuanced than people think. So on the one hand, wood pellets, they are renewable, right? Trees, you cut them down, you plant more. Theoretically, you're good to go. Fossil fuels, that well is going to run dry eventually, no way around it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But then there's that whole thing about how forests are managed, right? And even if I say as wood, burning stuff still releases emissions. Didn't think we'd get through this without talking about emissions, did you?
Nope, not going to happen. You've hit the nail on the head there. With wood pellets, a lot depends on responsible forestry. If you're planting more trees than you're chopping down and doing it right, then yeah, the impact can be way lower. But if it's just a free-for-all on the forests, whole different story.
And the emissions thing, that's where it gets tricky, right?
Totally. Okay, so burning wood pellets does, yes, release CO2. No get around that. But, and this is a big but, it's considered more carbon neutral than fossil fuels because, get this, the trees absorb CO2 while they're growing, so it kind of evens out in theory.
In theory, being the operative phrase there.
Exactly. It's not quite that simple. You got to factor in things like how far those pellets have to travel to get used, how efficient the stoves or boilers burning them are. It's a whole rabbit hole.
So basically, we need another deep dive just to unpack the environmental side of wood pellets.
I'm down if you are. We could do a whole thing on forestry, compare emissions from different energy sources, maybe even look into those newfangled biofuels everyone's talking about.
Now you're speaking my language. Consider that deep dive added to the list. But for today, I think we've given everyone a pretty good crash course on the wonderful world of wood pellets and the folks who make them.
We've covered a lot, T. The job itself, the career stuff, even dipped our toes into the whole environmental impact thing.
And hey, maybe, just maybe, someone listening right now is thinking, wood pellets. Never considered that before. If you're the kind of person who likes to work with their hands, cares about the planet, and wants a job that's got some serious room for growth, well, this could be it.
And if nothing else, I think this proves that dream jobs can pop up in the most unexpected places. Keep an open mind, folks. You never know what you might find.
Truer words have never been spoken. So to all our listeners out there, if any of this piqued your interest, don't just take our word for it. RoleCatcher is a great place to start, but don't let your research in there.
Keep those questions coming, keep learning, keep digging. The more we all know, the better choices we can make, both for our careers and for the planet.
And on that note, we'll catch you next time. Keep on learning, everyone.